Hello, welcome to Project Friday. Tonight we're going to face up to a mistake that I made over a year ago. I poured this casting. It's a multi-part pour. I created a base, then I put in a 3D printed figure that I had painted, and then poured clear Alumilite over top of it. And everything was going good until I decided to add some Starlight micro glitter to the mix. And, well, you can't really see it, but I overdid it on the glitter. But I suspect when I turn this thing down, the dragon inside is going to become a little clearer, and it might actually turn out okay. This thing's been lingering on my shelf for a year now, and it's time to face up to it. Let's see what we can do. One of the biggest challenges in turning is trying to figure out how to mount something on the lathe. I had originally intended this to be more of a paperweight shape, and I was going to cut a mortise in the bottom that I could then put on my 3-jaw chuck and then turn the top into a dome shape, and then that would sit flat on the desk. Looking at this though, I changed my mind, and I think I'm going to go for a sphere using my sphere cutting jig. So the first step is we want to rough out the sphere by taking the ends off. So I have tentative lines going. That's going to be my center mark, and then that's going to be the ends. So what I want to do is I want to bring it down and kind of rough out a sphere, and then I can get in there with my jig and I can finish shaping it. In order to do that, I epoxied a waste block to the top to hold it. So we all hope and pray the epoxy holds. I roughed it up real good. It's a smooth surface. Hopefully it'll hold together. And I got my tailstock up for good measure, so it is supported, at least in this initial phase. Let's go ahead and start truing this thing up. Now, rule of thumb, you always want to turn as fast as you can spin the object without vibrating the lathe, and keep it a safe speed. Pens, I go flat out without thinking about it. But something this big, I don't necessarily need whirling around at 3,200 RPM. So I'm going to advance it slowly until I feel like I'm at a good starting speed. I think that's probably a good place to start right there. I'm at 1,200, 1,230. Let's see what we can do. Okay, it's going a little bit slow. I especially don't like not having the dust collector on, but I just don't have room for it on this. I'm going to advance the speed a hair. See what we got. Oh yeah, still got a little ways to go right in there. It's flaking apart because it was a 2-stage casting process, and that's the outer shell. That's the clear that I cast the second time. And I actually do not like working with this stuff because it flies off in chunks. But once you get past it, you're pretty much good to go. It's not a very good bond. That's just flaking right off. Of course, I didn't sand out down there either. I am not a caster, and I don't pretend to be. Okay, I'm going to study it out. I'm going to turn this off for a second and regroup. I want to change my cutter head, and I do want to grab my face shield. I'm especially not liking the feel of this, and again, I'm not a caster, and I'm not certain of that bond. And if this thing flies apart, I want at least a little something between that and my face. So I'm going to pause it right here. I'll be back in a few minutes. Blow off the lens. All right, let's put some marks in this and see where we're at. Now I know measuring the bottom before I started turning, I had about 3 inches, so I pretty much want to turn a 3-inch sphere is what I want to do. So if I flip this over, and I'm just eyeballing because this is just going to be a rough measurement, but I want that end to be flush with the bottom. And I know that half of 3 would be 1.5. I'm trying to read this, I can't see it. About right there. And then the 3-inch mark, about right there. So let's go ahead and draw those in. So I need a better Sharpie. I'm going to throw this one out. Let's try this. That's going to be the equator, the sphere. And that's going to be the other end piece. So what I still need to do is bring this down more on both sides, try to get more of a ball shape out of it. But now that I know where the equator is, now I can start sloping it down. All right, I think that probably is pretty close. So I'm going to shut this off and I'm going to set up the sphere jig. And we're back. This is not meant to be a tutorial on using the chefware sphere turning jig. There's a lot of other sites on YouTube that would do a better job than I could. But the basics of setting this thing up: A, you want to make sure your tool rest is square. And then imagine two planes. If the jig is straight up and down, notice the cutter is centered on the equator right here. Now, as I turn it, also you want the cutter to be lined up in this plane with your center line. You want to move it back and forth until you get roughly the shape of the sphere where you're at. Now, this thing's oversized. I have to adjust it down. But the gist of it is as you turn, you loosen the lock knob and you crank down the wheel, and it lowers the cutter, and you start cutting and taking passes until you finally get it round. I'm not going to cut too deep into this section. Probably as I go, I'm going to probably cut a little more relief than what's here. Let's just get this thing started and see where it goes. Okay, a mistake that I just made. I did not have enough clearance on this side. I'm going to have to take care of that at this point. And I'm going to have to try to get this thing set back up right to where it was. To start, I definitely want to mark my point for my equator again, so I can at least get back to that point. Because this is going to involve taking off the jig and putting the tool rest back on. Alright. See right where we're at here. That's not a bad guess. Maybe a little high. Just a hair. Alright, let's clear some of this out. Alrighty then. Oh, didn't draw my equator. That's okay. We will wing it. Now the trick is to get this thing set back up relative to where it was. Or at least kind of close. You don't have to be exact, but the closer you get in the setup, the more round your sphere is going to be, the better off you are. All right, let's use that as a starting point. And it's pretty square, actually. Little bit off there. All right, where are we side to side? Actually, I need to lock that down, don't I? All right, get that vertical. Square on. Up, lock down the cutter. There we go. Okay. And you see I'm off because I'm dragging on that side and I'm loose on that side, which means I need to go this way with it. I'll probably end up cutting a lot of this out. This is stuff that you don't necessarily want to watch. But, okay, that's on the center line, but that's not, which means I'm a little bit crooked somewhere. So I got to figure that one out. And there it is right there. So I think I want to come that way. Lock that down on the center line, on the equator, straight up and down, close enough. I think that's going to allow us to get back. And what I'm looking at is the distance between the cutter and the sphere. So I think we're good right there. Let's let it rip. Alrighty. I've still got a bit of a flat on the bottom, but I'm getting pretty close to that dragon. We're going to call it right there. Let me go ahead and change over. I'm going to park this off, and I'm going to put it in my cups. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, and we'll take care of these ends. Okay, I got this mounted between cup centers. Let's see if we can take that little nub off. I would say that did it. And it also smoothed out the bottom of this too a little bit. Okay. Now we just got to polish. Okay. And this is going to be my polishing mount. I lack the proper equipment, but this is the best I could come up with. But I'm only spinning it, 1,500, 2,000 RPM tops. So this will work fine. So I'm going to turn my dust collector on to polish this thing up. I did put a couple flats in here when I took that nub off, but it's nothing we can't smooth out. Here we go. All right, time to wet sand. And I'm going to back it up to 240 grit. I was studying this off camera. And you got that little voice I've talked about in other videos, like Thomas Magnum used to have on the old series back in the 80s. Listen to your little voice. Something told me I was getting close and inspecting it. That wingtip is just right there. I couldn't. One, you can start seeing it now. I do not like the sharp edge on that. I really should have took the time and turned a couple cups. That edge is not doing me any favors. I'm also not centered too good in there either. Yeah, I'm going to have to do something about that. Little quick work on the grinder, just to take the sharp edge off of it. Didn't affect it any. So, see how this works. Suppose I can get that dust hood out of the way too. It's not doing anything at this point. Let's just jump right into the 800. Turn the lights out in my hood. No point in having that shining in my eyes. And maybe the camera too. Or the cell phone, I guess. We're a budget operation here. We don't use cameras. Our intent with this channel is not really to create a monetized YouTube channel like most people set out to do. This is just more of a alternate platform for our business so that we can kind of show our customers what we do. And I'm not trying to give tutorials or teach anybody. I do my thing. Not always the correct way to do anything, and lots of people can argue that there's other, maybe even better ways to do it. And I'm all right with that. What I do works for me. You do what you want to do. You can learn something by watching these videos. If I might give you a different option that you never thought of, that's good. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. I may have to go back to dry sanding. Same as that is not the flushest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. Yeah, that glitter is just a bit too much. Just a bit too much in there. It's too bad, because that would have been a good looking sphere. Well, I keep releasing the wrong thing. There we go. Well, that base turned out nice. That's pretty. Still got a little mark from our... I wonder how this one's doing. Digging in. Digging in. Blah, 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 blah. What did I do with my orb? Where's my orb? The key thing in many projects is knowing when to pivot. The lathe wasn't working too well for me, so I'm going to come over here and try the buffing wheel out. And there you have it. Altogether, it is as I feared when we first started this, and it has too much glitter. So I would consider this a failed project. But not to worry, because it was fun to do, and we learned something along the way. And that's what counts. And after a year of sitting on my shelf, now I can set it back on my shelf, but at least it's finished. All told, I'm a little disappointed with the glitter, When I was doing the casting, I opened the glitter, novice mistake. I opened the little thing of glitter over top of what I was pouring when I had the resin in, and I was using a popsicle stick. I wanted to scoop a little bit out, and don't you know it, 4 times what I wanted fell out, but it is what it is. See you next Project Friday.